Please raise your right hand. Please be seated. Please speak directly into the microphone. State and spell your name for the record. Derrell Mills, Derrell Mills. Sir, I need you to move closer to the microphone, please. Thank you. Good morning, sir. Good morning. You're incarcerated right now, is that right? Yes. Prior to your incarceration, where did you live? Not the exact address, the city and state. Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore, Maryland. How old are you right now? 31. How far did you get in school? 12. Did you graduate from high school? Yes. You've been convicted of several felonies, is that right? Yes. In 2008, you were convicted of distribution of heroin? Yes. In 2011, you were convicted of possession of heroin? Yes. In 2013, you were convicted of obtaining a controlled dangerous substance by fraud, is that right? Yes. And then in 2015, you were convicted of conspiracy to distribute controlled dangerous substances, is that right? Yes. And those were all state convictions? Yes. And then recently, in 2017, you were convicted of a drug conspiracy in a federal case, is that right? Yes. And was the drug in that case heroin? Yes. And you pled guilty, is that right? Yes. Have you been sentenced yet? No. At some point, did you agree to cooperate with law enforcement and with the U.S. Attorney's Office? Yes. And when you pled guilty, did you plead guilty through a plea agreement? Yes. Was there also a cooperation agreement? Yes. Other than that cooperation agreement and your plea agreement, has anybody made any other promises to you? No. Have you been threatened at all by anyone in my office or law enforcement? No. Do you understand that in your cooperation agreement it states that any statements you make can't be used against you, is that right? Yes. Are you cooperating in hopes of receiving a lesser sentence when you are in fact sentenced? Yes. All right. So after your 2013 conviction, were you incarcerated for a little while? Were you in jail? Yes. When did you get out of jail? 2014. After you got out of jail in 2014, did you become involved in drug trafficking? Yes. About how long after you got out of jail did you become involved in drug trafficking? A couple months. A couple months. When did you go back into jail approximately? 2017. So while you were out of jail between 2014 and 2017, did you yourself use drugs? Yes. What types of drugs did you use? Percocets and weed. And weed? Yeah. Sir, do you have a nickname? Yeah. What's your nickname? Rel. When you got out of jail in 2014, you said you got back involved in drug trafficking. Did you work by yourself? Did you work with other people? I worked with someone. Did you work for someone? Yeah. Who did you work for? Pipe. Okay, and do you know Pipe's real name? Yeah, Karan Wheeler. About how long did you work for Mr. Wheeler? Like a year and a half. I want to show you what's been marked as Government's Exhibit P44. Do you recognize that individual? Yeah, that's Pipe. Who's that? That's Pipe? When you were working with Pipe, what kind of drugs were you distributing? Heroin. And where did you distribute heroin? Pennsylvania Avenue and Cary and Lawrence. Cary and Lawrence. What was the other place? Pennsylvania Avenue. Pennsylvania Avenue. You said you worked for him for about a year and a half? Yes. Do you remember any of the other individuals that worked with you and Pipe at the drug shop? No. All right, I'm putting up on the screen, which is right to your left, Government's Exhibit P44. You said that's Pipe or Karan Wheeler? Yes. All right, I'd like to show you another photograph. This is Government's Exhibit P39. Do you recognize that individual? Yeah. Who is that? D-Man. D-Man? Yeah. Do you know D-Man's real name? Uh-uh. Did you ever work with him distributing drugs? Yes. Did he work for Pipe or did he work for someone else? Yeah, he worked for Pipe. I'm putting up on the screen Government's Exhibit P39. You said this is the individual you know as D-Man? Yes. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions about the work you did with Mr. Wheeler. Is it fair to say that you worked at a drug shop with Mr. Wheeler? Yes. And I think you said there was a couple locations that you worked at? Yes. How long was that shop open on a routine day? Every day? Every day? Yes. And from what time to what time? Like 8 to 5? What was your job? To collect the money. What were some of the other jobs of the people at the shop? Hand off the drugs to other people. Okay, what did you call them? Hitters. What did D-Man do for the shop? He was hidden. Okay, would you collect money from the hitters? Yes. And it was, you said, Pipe's shop, is that right? Yes. What was Pipe's job? What you mean? I'm sorry, I didn't ask that very well. So if it's his shop, what does he do on a day-to-day basis? Give us the drugs and I'll turn the money into him? Okay. The heroin that was being sold, how was that packaged? In 50 gel caps in 50 packs? 50 gel caps? Yeah. And what do you call it? A 50 pack. Okay. Do you know approximately how much money Pipe was making at the shop on a daily basis? Like $6,500. $6,500? Yeah. How much did you make at the drug shop? Like $15,000 to $1,000 per day? No, a couple days. And that was your work when you were working as a picking up the money? Yes. Did you have any other jobs other than picking up the money? No. Did you ever run the shop for Pipe when he wasn't around? Yes. Do you know where Pipe was getting his heroin from? Yes. Who is he getting his heroin from? Blue Black. How do you know that? Because we met up a couple times to get it. Who met up a couple of times? Me and Pipe. Met with Blue Black? Yes. And you would see the exchange? Yes. Do you know how much heroin Pipe was getting from Blue Black? No. I'd like to show you another photograph. This is Government's Exhibit P42. Do you recognize this individual? Yes. Who's that? That's Blue Black. Do you know Blue Black's real name? No. Putting up on your screen P42. This is Blue Black? Yes. Other than heroin, did you sell anything else? You personally sell anything else at Pipe's shop? Yeah, Coke. You sold Coke? Yeah. All right. How much Coke did you sell in a day? I don't remember. Would you sell or would you get the cocaine in packs as well? No. All right. How would they come? By ounces. By ounces? Yeah. Okay. And how would you distribute those? Let me ask a better question. How was the cocaine packaged? In powder. In what? In a Ziploc bag in powder. Would you then repackage it? Yes. And what would you repackage it into? Some vials. Vials? Yeah. Do you know if D-Man worked at another drug shop other than Pipe's? Yeah, he worked down Bruce Manor. Is Bruce Manor in Baltimore City? Yes. How close is it to the shops that you were working at Pennsylvania Avenue and Cary and Lawrence? A couple of blocks. A couple of blocks. Is there another name for Bruce Manor? Yeah, Pedestal Gardens. Pedestal Gardens? Yes. So I'm going to ask you to pull up just a little closer to that microphone, all right? Move your chair and you closer to the microphone. Do you know any of the other individuals that worked at the drug shop at Pedestal Gardens or Bruce Manor? Yes. Can you tell me a couple? Fat Mall, Gorilla Mar, and D-Man? Yes. All right. How do you know that they worked at that drug shop? I used to go down there. Would you see the shop operating? Yes. Can I have one moment, Your Honor? Yes. Sir, I'd like to show you one more photograph. This is Government's Exhibit P39. Do you recognize that individual? Yes. Who's that? Gorilla Mar. Do you know Gorilla Mar's real name? No. I'm going to put up on the monitor Government's Exhibit P31. This is Gorilla Mar? Yes. And you said he worked at Bruce Manor with D-Man, is that right? Yes. All right, I'd like to show you Government's Exhibit P1. Do you recognize this individual? That's Tana. How do you know Tana? I really don't know him. Meaning, well, let me ask you a different question. Are you friends with him? No. Did you see him around town? I've seen him a couple times. Where would you see him? Downtown town. How long have you known him or known of him? I just seen him around. I don't know him. Okay, is that years, months? I just seen him a few times. In Soundtown? Yeah. Do you know if he has a brother? Yeah. What's his brother's name? Rel. Do you know either of their real names? No. I'm going to put up Government's Exhibit P2. Do you recognize that individual? Yeah, that's Rel. When you saw Tana in Sandtown, where would you see him? In front of the barbershop or the store. Had you ever heard of something called TTG? Yes. Where did you hear about it? I just seen it on Instagram. Okay, did you see it associated with any particular person or a particular Instagram account? Objection. Overruled. Did you see TTG associated with any particular person or Instagram account? Yeah, that was just a headline. That was just what? The name of the headline on IG, on their page. And do you know if it was associated with a particular person or account? Objection. You'll have to explain the personal basis observation. Did you see on Instagram TTG associated with a particular person or account? Yes. Objection, hearsay. Overruled. Yes, Tana's. What person? Who? Tana's. Whose? Tana's. Anybody else that you can recall? No. Have you ever purchased drugs from Rel? Yeah, some weed. Weed? Yeah. How many times? 2 times. Is this a large quantity, small quantity? No, $50 worth. Was that just for you? Yes. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Government's Exhibit P6. If you can look on your monitor, do you recognize that individual? Yes. Who is that? That's Dennis. How do you know Dennis? I grew up with him. How long have you known him? How old were you? Since the 4th grade. Did you go to school together? Yes. Elementary school? And middle and high school. Okay, how do you describe your relationship? Were you friends with him or were you just acquaintances? We was friends. When you were going to school together, would you socialize with him? No, but I ain't seen him that often. I wasn't going for real. Say that a little bit. I wasn't going for real when we was in high school. Do you know if Dennis has any family? Yes. Who in his family do you know? His sisters. I know his whole family. Who is his family? What you mean? Like, what are their names? Tenica, Taiwan, Shamal, his sisters. Do you know any of them personally? Yes. Do you know if Dennis had any nicknames? Yeah, DP. Do you know any other nicknames? No. I want to go back to 2014 after you got released from prison. Would you see Dennis? Yeah. Did you see him socially? Would you see him around town? Both. If you saw him around town, where would you see him? on Pennsylvania Avenue. That's where you were working for Pipe at the drug shop? Yes. Would you socialize with Dennis? Yeah, we'd have a little conversation. Where would those conversations take place? Outside. On the street? Yes. Did you ever go to his residence or your residence? No. Okay, did you ever ride around in a car with him? Yes. In your conversations with Mr. Pulley, did he ever talk about being involved in drug trafficking? Yeah, selling weed. He said he was selling weed? Yeah. Did you ever purchase marijuana from him? Yeah. How many times? Like 2 times. Were you buying $50 of weed like you were with Mr. Savells or something else? No, I got like 3 ounces from him. 3 ounces? Yes. How much would you have to pay for 3 ounces? 200. Do you remember where you were when you would purchase the ounces of marijuana? Did Mr. Pulley ever talk to you about heroin? Yeah. What did he say? Just said he can get it. Did he say where he can get it from? I don't remember. Did you ever buy heroin from him? No. Why not? Because I was already selling it. Working for Pipe? Yeah. Did you ever see Mr. Pulley interacting with either Tana or Rel? No, not Rel. I seen him one time with Tana, though. Okay, where was that? They was in the car together by the hotel. Were you with them? I seen them in the parking lot. You said that sometimes you would be in the car with Mr. Pulley, is that right? No, I don't remember that. You never were in a car with him? Oh, yeah, I rode with him in that car before. Were you ever with Mr. Pulley when he delivered any type of drugs? Yeah, one time. Where was that? He gave some guy some weed before, I don't remember. He gave some guy some weed? Yes. Do you remember how that weed was packaged? No, it was just in a bag. Do you remember what kind of bag? A grocery bag, a brown grocery bag. Did Mr. Pulley ever talk about where he was getting his marijuana from? No, I don't remember. Do you know what? Let me back up for a second. When you're talking about marijuana, did people sometimes sell different brands or strains of marijuana? What you mean? Like different brand names for marijuana? Oh, yeah. Okay, do you know if Mr. Pulley had a particular brand of marijuana that he was selling? It was Purple Haze. Purple Haze? Yeah. Did Mr. Pulley ever talk to you, or did you ever see where he was storing the drugs that he was distributing? No. Did he ever talk to you about it? No. Did Mr. Pulley ever talk to you or offer to you that he could get you heroin? No, he just said he had it, he can get it. He said he had it? I mean, he can get it. Did he say where he would get the heroin from? No, I don't remember that. Do you know Mr. Pulley's stepfather? Who? Say again. You said his what? His stepfather. Who is that? Do you know his stepfather? The answer is no. You said that you saw Mr. Pulley with Tana on at least one occasion, is that right? Yes. Do you know whether or not they had a relationship? Objection, asked and answered. Overruled. Do you know if they had a relationship? I guess they was cool. Did Mr. Pulley ever talk to you about Mr. Pulley giving Tana any kind of gift? Yeah, he said he got him a car. A what? He said he got him a car. What kind of car did Mr. Pulley say he got for Tana? A red Honda Coupe. Did Mr. Pulley say that there was anything interesting or unusual about that red Honda Coupe? I don't remember. Did he ever talk about a trap? Objection leading. Overruled. A what? Did Mr. Pulley ever talk about a trap? Like a stash spot? Uh-huh. Yeah. What did Mr. Pulley say? It was just a stash spot in the car. In what car? In the Honda. The one he gave to Tana? Yes. What is a stash spot, or what do you understand a stash spot to be? Something you put stuff in so the police don't find it? Have you ever talked to Tana? No. Have you ever been around Tana when he was talking to other people? Yeah, one time. Who was he talking to? Pipe. Mr. Wheeler? Yes. And where did that conversation take place? On the avenue. Pennsylvania Avenue? Yes. So you were present for the conversation but didn't participate in it? Yes. What were Pipe and Tana talking about? He was just telling him he got chased in a car and he got pulled over and he had a gun in the car and the police ain't find it. Who said that? Tana. Was he talking about that same red Honda? I believe so. You said he had a firearm in the car and that law enforcement looked for it? And they couldn't find it. They couldn't find it. Did Mr. Pulley ever offer you any money to kill someone? No, we had a conversation though. Who did Mr. Pulley offer you money to kill? Magic. I'd like to show you government's Exhibit P18. Do you recognize this individual? Yeah, that's Magic. Do you know Magic's real name? No. How do you know Magic? He was just coming around the neighborhood. Were you friends, acquaintances, just somebody you saw around? He was all right. Do you know if Mr. Pennington was involved in drug trafficking? Yes. How do you know that? I had bought some coke from him before. Do you know if Mr. Pennington had ever been shot? Yeah. Okay, how do you know? I was outside when he got shot. Where was it? On Pennsylvania Avenue. What happened? The cars had... Objection, Foundation. 2 cars had... Hold on, sir. Objection. He said he was outside. I contend that's not sufficient foundation for what's about to be. Sir, did you observe the shooting with your own eyes? No. What happened? Well, where did the shooting take place? On Pennsylvania and Preston. Objection, Your Honor. You'll have to establish what he personally saw. Did you hear the shooting? Yes. Where were you in relation to the shooting? Like 3 buildings up from where it happened at. What did you see? 2 cars just pulled up and they just started shooting. And you saw that? Yes. Okay, did you see Magic there? Yeah, he was sitting on the corner. Okay, what did he do when the shooting occurred? Nothing, he was trying to run, but he got shot. And you saw that yourself? Yes. Your Honor, I have a couple of calls to play. They're both from June, so they'll be in the June transcript book. All right. The first call is on June 28th, and it should be on page 38 of the transcript book. What page, counsel? 38. That will be session 499. I'm going to hand government's exhibit T5 to the witness. Is it coming through the TV? It should be coming through the system. Let me try it. I'm going to pause it right there. Mr. Mills, do you know an individual named Richie Rod? Yeah, I know him, but I don't associate with him. Where have you seen Richie Rod, if at all? On the avenue and down Bruce Manor. On Pennsylvania Avenue and Bruce Manor? Yes. Okay. I'm going to stop the call right there. You referenced working with Pipe and D-Man, is that right? Yes. Okay, do you know if Pipe and D-Man knew Magic? Yeah, they knew each other. And how do you know that? Because they was being around each other. Okay, did you ever have a conversation with Magic about Mr. Pulley? Yes. And what was that conversation? Magic had came up to me one day. Objection, hearsay. May we approach, Your Honor? You may. So, Your Honor, the government anticipates that Mr. Mills will testify that Magic came up to him and offered him $2,000 to tell him where Mr. Pulley was outside, and that he then took that information back to Mr. Pulley to relay it back to him. So some of it is, a question or an offer which wouldn't be hearsay, but then what is not is simply offered not for the truth of the matter asserted, but the fact that the statement was made to give context to what he takes back to Mr. Pulley. Okay. Sounds to me like a large part of that would be for the that he offered $2,000 for this witness to tell him where Mr. Pulley's whereabouts. That does not sound like a statement for the truth of it. It's something that he's asking this person to do. But my understanding is Mills will testify that Pennington told him that Pulley, this is new information. I should say this is new information. This isn't in any report or grand jury or anything. I'm just hearing this for the first time. If I'm understanding the proffer correctly, it's that Mr. Mills will testify that Mr. Pennington will testify about what Mr. Pulley said. Is that the correct? No. No. So Mr. Mills will testify that Magic came to him, said, I'll give you $2,000 if you tell me if you see Pulley outside. Mills took that information back to Mr. Pulley and relayed it to Mr. Pulley, which is then okay, I understand. All right, go ahead. Your Honor, while we're up here, if I may ask, is the government going to be playing any more calls with this witness? I think one. So, Your Honor, as I had suggested in one of the previous witnesses, the government's playing calls, but it's not asking the witnesses any questions. They're just introducing the calls again without it being tethered to this particular witness. So I would be objecting. Same ruling. I'll join that objection. Same ruling. So, sir, my last question was, did Magic ever talk to you about Mr. Pulley? Yes. Okay, was this before or after the shooting that you had just talked about? Before. Before? And what did Magic talk to you about Mr. Pulley? He came to me and said he's going to give me $2,000 if I call him when Pulley pull up down here or if I know where he at. So Mr. Pulley was going to offer you $2,000? I'm sorry, no, say that again. Magic was going to offer you $2,000 to tell him when Mr. Pulley was somewhere? Or if I knew where he was at? Okay, how did you respond? I told him I didn't know where he was at. Okay, did you ever relay that information to Mr. Pulley? Yes. That day or later? I think like a day or two, but how did Mr. Pulley respond when you... Let me back up. Did you communicate what Magic had said to Mr. Pulley? Yes. And how did Mr. Pulley respond? He just said, for real? You said at some point Mr. Pulley offered you money to kill Magic, is that right? Yes. When did that happen? A couple days after the first conversation. And do you recall what Mr. Pulley said to you? No, not for real. What did you understand what Mr. Pulley said to you? Objection. Overruled. What you mean? I understand you can't remember the exact words. What did you understand what he was saying, what he was conveying to you? That he got $10,000 on Magic head? Okay, so if you killed Magic, he would give you $10,000? Yes. What did you say? Objection, Your Honor. Overruled. Hold on, sir. Overruled. I'll repeat the question. So your understanding was that if you killed Magic, Mr. Pulley would give you $10,000? Yes. How did you respond to Mr. Pulley? I said no. Did Mr. Pulley ever talk to you or explain to you why he wanted Magic killed? I think they ran into one of his partners or something. I'm not sure. Objection. Let me ask a different question. Move to strike. He said he's not sure. Next question. Did Mr. Pulley ever talk to you about Magic stealing from him or burglarizing a residence? Yeah, he said they had took something. He never said what, though. Who took something? Magic, D-Man. Anyone else? And the guy Easy. All right, I'd like to play another call. It's from the June transcript. It's on page 221. It's session 242. How much did Mr. Pulley offer you to kill Magic? $10,000. Now, you said you've been in jail since 2017, is that right? Yes. Were you ever in jail with Mr. Pulley? Yes. Do you remember the approximate time frame? Sometime in 2017. And do you know what facility? Yeah, CDF. Were you co-located or housed with Mr. Pulley? No. Okay, where was he in the prison and where were you? He slept downstairs, I slept upstairs. Directly downstairs and upstairs from each other? No, it's 2 different floors. 2 different floors. Would you ever see him in the prison? Yeah, when I go to property or outside. What do you mean go to property? What does that mean? Like to pick something up I ordered? How would you see him when you would go to property? He would be by the door. And I think you said you would see him if you were outside? Yeah. What does that mean? When I'm going outside for rec. How would you be able to see him? Would you both be outside at the same time? No, he'd be by the door. There's a door that you can talk through? Yes. Okay, did you ever... Let me back up for just a second. Do you know if Magic is alive or dead? He dead. Did you ever have a conversation with Mr. Pulley about Magic being dead? No. Did he ever talk to you about Gorilla Mar? I don't remember. I'm putting up government's Exhibit P39. Is this the individual you identified as Gorilla Mar? Yes. Do you recall if Mr. Pulley talked to you about Gorilla Mar? Objection asked and answered. Overruled. I don't remember. If you saw your grand jury testimony, would that help you refresh your recollection? No. Can I have one moment, Your Honor? Yes. I apologize. Can I just have one moment, Your Honor? Sure. Just one or two more questions, Your Honor. Mr. Mills, do you know if anybody ever tried to collect $10,000 for Magic's death? No, I don't remember that. Say that again, sir? I don't remember. Okay, no further questions, Your Honor. All right, anybody? Any questions? Mr. Burnham? Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Mills. Good morning. I'm Charles Burnham. I represent Dennis Pulley. I have a few questions for you. Good morning. I'm Charles Burnham. I represent Dennis Pulley. I have a few questions for you. How old did you say you were when you first met Dennis? I was 10. 10, and y'all's families knew each other? Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, you and Dennis have kids around the same age roughly, right? Would you agree with me that Dennis tends to have a little bit of a big mouth? Would that be fair at times? Yes. He can talk, right? Yes. Okay, let me ask you a few questions about Mr. Gardner asked you about your criminal history. You recall that, right? Yes. Your most recent conviction before the federal case that you are awaiting sentencing for now, that was for conspiracy to distribute controlled substances in 2015, right? Yes. How much time did you get for that? I got probation. You got probation? Yeah. Okay, and probation. For the ladies and gentlemen of the jury is essentially, instead of going to jail, you promise a judge that you will follow the rules of probation and, above all, not commit any more crimes, right? Yes. That would be the promise that you made in your case, right? Yes. Did the judge give you backup time? Yes. Meaning suspended time, something like that? Yes. How much suspended time did you have? 10 years. And then you were released from doing that time when? When did you get, or no? When was that case concluded? What you mean? When was that case concluded? The case I was just questioning you about. Sometime in 16. All right, and then you had previously before that been released from serving a prison sentence around February of 2014, right? Yes. Okay, and I think you said on direct a few months after that date I just mentioned, you started working at these couple different drug shops that Mr. Gardner was questioning you about, right? Yes. All right, now you and I have never met before today, correct? Yes. But you did speak starting on, you were arrested July 2017, right? For the federal case, correct? Yes. No, July 12th, I think. July 12th, 2017. And on that date, you met with several members of law enforcement, correct? Yes. Detective or TFO Neptune, this gentleman here, spoke with you that day, right? Yes. There was another task force officer named Epkins who was there that day, right? I don't remember him. Well, there was somebody other than, right, TFO Neptune, right? Right. And that person asked you questions. That interview went on for about 2 hours or so, right? Yes. And then after that interview, after you had counsel for this case, you met again with the government around January of 2018. Is that right? Yes. Okay, and TFO Neptune would have been there again, correct? Yes. And probably Mr. Gardner as well and Mr. Romano. These two gentlemen would have been there at that meeting? Yes. The first meeting I mentioned when you were arrested, are you aware that that meeting was videotaped? No. Okay, as far as you know, your second meeting in January of 2018, that certainly was not videotaped, correct? Yes. All right, and then you testified before the grand jury, is that right? Yes. Okay, since your grand jury testimony, how many times in preparation for your testimony today did you meet with either TFO Neptune or Mr. Gardner or someone else from the government? I think twice. Twice? Okay. Now, skipping around a little bit here, at your first post-arrest interview in 2017 with Detective Neptune and the other gentleman, isn't it true that you never mentioned to them that you had witnessed a non-fatal shooting of the individual you know as Magic, correct? You say I did what? During your interview on the day you were arrested with TFO Neptune, you never mentioned that you had witnessed a non-fatal shooting of Magic, right? I don't believe they asked me that. I know, but listen to my question, please. You never mentioned it, right? No. And you talked to them that day for probably about 2.5 hours. Does that sound about right? I don't remember. Does that sound wildly off base that you talked to them for about 2 hours? I don't remember. Okay, how long do you recall it being? Like an hour and a half? All right, and isn't it also true that at that meeting you never mentioned whether you were asked or not about Mr. Pennington offering you the $2,000 that you testified on direct, correct? You didn't bring that up? Right. Despite the fact that you were questioned that day about Dennis Pulley, about Magic, and about many, many other people, correct? Yes. All right, and the same would be true for the meeting I mentioned a moment ago in January of 2018. You never brought up at that meeting that you had witnessed a non-fatal shooting of Christopher Pennington, correct? Yes. And it's correct that you never mentioned at that meeting that Mr. Pennington had made that $2,000 offer, correct? Yes. Okay, so those allegations, you're publicly debuting them here for the first time, right? Yes. Thank you. Now, in your initial interview with law enforcement, and again, now I'm referring to the summer of 2017, you had been involved with selling drugs for, going on a decade at that point, right? Yes. And in that period of time, you'd been arrested a few times and been in and out of jail, right? Yes. You had never had a federal case before, correct? That would be the first time you had been arrested by the feds? Yes. Right? But you knew enough at that point to understand, and again, I'm referring to your post-arrest interview, that your situation was not good, correct? What you mean? You knew it wasn't a good thing to be in federal custody in a drug investigation, correct? I'm not sure. Well, you certainly would have known that were you to be convicted, that would be about your 5th drug offense, correct? No, it wouldn't have been my 5th. What would be the number, 4th? It would have been my 3rd because the one in 15 is the same one I'm locked up for now. You had a distribution of heroin in 2008, right? Yes, that's 1. Then you had possession of heroin in 2011, right? That's 2, right? You had obtaining a controlled and dangerous substance by fraud. That's 2013, correct? Yes, that's not heroin though. I know, it's a drug offense, right? Right. Okay, it's oxy, right? That's what that was? Yes. Okay, and then you had the 2015 case, correct? Which was a conspiracy case, right? And it's the same case from 2015. Okay, so it would be your 4th drug offense, whether heroin or oxy or something else, correct? Yes. All right, and you were aware, even though you'd never had a federal case before, of something called the Federal Sentencing Guidelines, right? Yes. Okay, and the federal sentencing guidelines, that phrase is enough to strike fear into the heart of any. Objection. Sustained. All right, I'll move on. You knew, or at least had a vague understanding, that the federal sentencing guideline might very well result in you serving a very long sentence for selling drugs, correct? I'm not sure. Okay, you say you're not sure. Isn't it true that during your first post-arrest interview, you were already putting out the feelers, so to speak, about getting a reduction of your time from TFO Neptune and the government, correct? Yes. Okay, you specifically asked them how your time might be shortened through cooperation, correct? I don't remember that. Would it refresh your recollection if I showed you a little bit of that, interview? Okay, Your Honor, I'd like to offer a short clip of the interview. With the assistance of Miss Panis, can we play 1 hour 20? Can we approach? Yes. So I'm not sure what the clip is. If it's an inconsistent statement, that's fine. But if it's something else, I'd like to know what it is. I'll make a proffer, offering this as extrinsic evidence of a prior inconsistent statement. It's about a little less than a minute clip where I'll proffer that the witness asks, I believe it was TFO Epkins, how to, quote, shorten his time. Yeah, I think he agreed that he wanted to cooperate, wanted to shorten his time. You asked him for a follow-up question about a specific quote, and he said, I don't remember, but he's already stated on cross that, and on direct that he's cooperating to spend less time in prison. I think that's very clear from his testimony. Right, I would just like to avoid the extra time playing this clip if we don't need it, but if you could just, in case there's any confusion about the exact quote, if you could just ask him again, does he remember in his first interview asking whether he could shorten his time by cooperation? That's basically what you're getting at. Exactly. Right. If he still says he doesn't remember, then yes, you could play the clip. Didn't he actually already, and I apologize, I thought that question was asked and he said yes. No, he said he didn't remember. Okay, all right, fair enough. He said he didn't remember. There was a question before that, something along the lines of cooperation where he agreed to it, and then that was the follow-up question. Okay, I understand. While we're here, just to save bench conferences, probably my next area of cross will be that he at another point, in response to questions from Mr. Mills, TFO Neptune stated to the witness that cooperation goes a long way, and then of course he says, but I'm not promising anything. If the witness doesn't acknowledge having that statement made to him, I would then try to seek to play that clip. I don't think there's any question, the substance of it, that he understands that he's hoping to get a reduced sentence by cooperation. So I don't really see why we would get into it and what exactly. There's nothing improper. You just told me about what Neptune. I'm not going to argue that Neptune did something. Why are we here then? Because that will then show that before he had his cooperation agreement, before he even had a lawyer, he was put on notice that through cooperating, his sentence could be lower, which gives him a motivation potentially to. But he's already agreed to that. I mean, the substance of it, he has already agreed to. I was going with you that you asked him a specific question about whether he initiated something during his first interview, and he said he didn't remember. If he still doesn't remember, then you can play that clip. But no, the general substance that even as of the first interview, he wanted to cooperate and he was hoping to reduce his sentence. I think that's been made clear. The reason I'd be offering it, just to make the record clear, is I assume the government will make the argument, as they always do, as they should, that he's just telling the truth. And I believe it cuts against that if he was put on notice from the very beginning that his cooperation could not only serve to tell the truth, but to benefit him. That would be the purpose for which I'd be using it. Okay, same ruling. I don't think we need to get into that second clip. But again, this is now taking a lot longer than it would have if we had just played the clip, I suppose. But let's go back and ask him the question again, and if he still doesn't remember, you can play that piece where he initiates the conversation, is what you're saying. Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Mr. Mills, I'll repeat a question just to be clear that I asked you a moment ago, which is, isn't it true that in your post-arrest interview in the summer of 2017, you yourself asked one of the task force officers if you could shorten your time through cooperation? I don't remember. Okay, I'd like to play a short clip. I believe it's starting at 1 hour, 25 minutes and 48 seconds and then going until about 1 hour, 26 minutes and 35 seconds. Your Honor, can I have a moment before we play the clip, just very quickly? Thank you. Mr. Mills, were you watching that video? Yes. Okay, that's you there, right? Yes. A little bit shorter facial hair. You remember that post-arrest interview, correct? Yes. Okay, and so is it true that you asked them that day about shortening your time, right? Yes. Okay, and that's what you're trying to do here, just to be perfectly honest, right? No. You're not trying to tell the truth about stuff that happened. You're not trying to shorten your expected sentence? Yes, and telling the truth about stuff that happened. Okay, we'll come back to that. After you met with the detective or the task force officers that day, you were appointed counsel, correct? Yes. And you acquired counsel, I don't know, but you got counsel one way or the other, right? Yes. And your lawyer was, let's just say, an experienced practitioner in the federal courts of many years' experience, correct? Yes. And you were in a facility with lots of other people facing federal charges, correct? Yes. And so I don't want to get into what you told your lawyer. That's not my business. But I want to ask, you did learn that based on the amount of drugs that you sold, you probably were facing charges involving a mandatory minimum of at least 10 years, correct? Yes. And in fact, you probably also learned that without cooperating, you would have been lucky just to get that 10 years. Would that be fair? I'm not sure. Did anybody ever tell you about the term career offender? No. Oh, they said I wasn't one. All right. Yeah. Okay. Career offender is somebody that has at least 2 prior felony drug offenses, correct? Yes. And you have 2 prior felony drug... Objection. We're not going to debate about whether he is or not a career offender. I just wanted to ask him if he understands what it is. Sustained. In any case, you were facing a mandatory minimum of at least 10 years. Is that correct? Yes. Career offender aside, and you would have also learned that if you get what they call, you know of something called a 5K, right? You know what that term is? No. You never heard the term 5K? No. Did you ever hear the term cooperation reduction, Rule 35, substantial assistance? You hear any of those things? I don't remember. You don't remember. Did you ever talk to your lawyer? Yes. And he never mentioned anything about a 5K to you? I don't remember. Let's just put it in terms of what? Reducing his sentence because of cooperating. Whether he remembers the term 5K is not important. Did your lawyer tell you that you could reduce your expected sentence by cooperating? Yes. And did he tell you that that reduction could be a sentence below the 10-year mandatory minimum, correct? Yes. All right, and so you also understood that the amount of your reduction depended on the type and nature of your cooperation, correct? Yes. The more information you provide, all else equal, the bigger reduction you can expect to get, correct? Yes. And the more serious the offenses you cooperate in, the bigger the reduction you can expect to get, correct? Yes. And the more number of times, the number of people you testify against, the greater that number is, the greater your expected reduction is, correct? Yes. And you actually testified once before pursuant to the same cooperation agreement in an in another case, correct? Yes. All right. And you would have also understood that the FBI isn't out there chasing around marijuana dealers as their first priority, correct? Objection. Sustained. Have you ever murdered anyone? No. Have you ever tried to work as a hitman? May we approach, Your Honor? Yes. What's the basis of the objection? The basis of the objection is a good faith basis for even asking the question, and the second is 608-609. It is not a conviction. Asking open-ended questions about any type of crime he may have committed in his life is not relevant. I think I can help. I'm not really going where I think Mr. Gardner thinks I'm going. The witnesses claim that Mr. Pulley offered him a contract to kill somebody, and so I fully expect him to say he's never killed anyone or done anything like that, which would then be an argument later that it's impossible and nonsensical that he would be the one that Mr. Pulley would offer that contract to, so I fully expect him to say no to all of these. Okay, my good faith basis is the opposite of what... Does that make sense? Yes, that makes sense. Go ahead. So, Mr. Mills, you said you've never murdered anyone. You've never attempted to murder anybody, right? No. You've never kidnapped anybody? No. You're not even one of those guys that goes around sticking up drug dealers, are you? No. In fact, as far as I know, you've never committed any acts of violence, right? You haven't committed any acts of serious violence, right? No. All right. Court's indulgence. No further questions. All right. Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Anybody else? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Lawler? Good morning, sir. How are you? I'm all right. Now, you say you know Mr. Barronette. Is that right? I said I didn't know him. You don't know him. You've seen him around a couple of times, right? Yeah, yes. Okay, and you're saying that he had a conversation with Pipe. Is that right? Yes. And when did this conversation take place? What you mean? I mean, when did it take place? Like, can you give us a date? I don't remember the day. Can you give us your best estimate of the date of the conversation? I don't remember. Can you tell me the season it was? It was 2016. It was 2016? Okay, was it warm out, cold out, night, day? I don't remember. Okay, middle of the year, end of the year, beginning of the year? I don't remember. Okay, where did those conversations take place? On Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay, and you were present, Pipe was present, and you're saying Mr. Barronette was present? Yes. All right, who else was present? There was nobody else? Just the three of you? Yes. All right, now you said that. First of all, let me make sure I understand this. You're testifying here today that Mr. Pulley bought an automobile for Mr. Barronette? Yes. Okay, like as a gift? I guess so. Was it for his birthday or Christmas or... I'm not sure. Okay, does Mr. Pulley normally display this kind of generosity in your experience? No, he'd be doing right for people. Okay, and you say that you heard that the car had a trap? Uh-huh. Was that under the seat or where was it? I'm not sure. I don't know. Do you know where it was, sir? I don't know. How is it you know about this purported trap then? What you say? How is it you know about this? 'Cause they had a conversation about it. Who had a conversation about it? What you mean? Tana and Pipe. Tana and Pipe had a conversation about the stash spot in the car? Yeah, he was saying he got chased one day and the police ain't find the gun. Okay, what else did he say about that? That was it. Just that he got chased? Yes. Do you know when this chase occurred in relation to your conversation? No, I do not. Okay, all right. Those are all the questions I have. All right, anybody else? Any redirect? All right, just briefly, Your Honor. Sir, we talked about your cooperation agreement. Do you recall that? Yes. What happens if you're not truthful? What happens to that cooperation agreement? Go out the window. You said about an hour and a half conversation with law enforcement when you were first arrested. Is that right? That's what I remember. Okay, were you able to tell your whole life story in that hour and a half? No. And then we saw a clip. It was about an hour and a half into the interview where you asked about shortening your sentence? Yes. Okay, so is it fair to say that prior to that hour and a half you had been talking to law enforcement officers about people and things like that? Yes. Okay, before you asked about... Yes. Cooperation? Yes. That's all the questions I have, Your Honor. All right, thank you. The witness is excused.